Hi folks, this is Sam Muir for Ukulele Magazine, and today we'll be looking at my instrumental arrangement of the beautiful but haunting Irish song She Moves Through the Fair. The sheet music in tab and notation is available in the spring 2023 issue of Ukulele Magazine, and there's also some background information on the song. So today we're just going to dive straight into looking at the notes. First of all, this arrangement is in high G tuning. So today I'm playing a soprano, but in the YouTube performance video I actually used my tenor, so you can play it on soprano, concert or tenor. The main thing is that you've got the high G reentrant tuning. When I'm making an instrumental arrangement, I really try and capture the idea of the lyrics in the music. So in other words, it's the music that really has to paint the picture of the story. And today I'll be talking about the techniques I used and helping you to play this piece. As I said before, this is quite an eerie song, so I've used some campanella passages to create some cross-string dissonances. There's also quite a few chords in the piece, and I use different approaches to playing these chords, which we'll look at as we go through it, to get different effects. So we begin with this semiquaver or 16th note triplet, and to start with I've positioned fingers 1 and 2. Finger 1 on the D and finger 2 on the F sharp ready, and then after plucking the D I hammer on with my 4th finger to play the E, and then pluck the F sharp with my middle finger. So it's index finger, hammer and then middle finger. And if we speed it up, and it's leading towards this G on the first beat of measure 1. So if we put that little idea together, it sounds like this. And you can already hear the dissonances, I hope. If you don't like using the little finger and you find that position awkward, we can move some of the notes. So obviously the D has to be played here on the 2nd fret of the C string, but we can play the E open and then hammer on with the 2nd finger to play the F sharp. In which case we get, so it's 2 plucked notes and then the hammer, so I am hammer. A little bit different from I hammer M, or the effect is slightly different. When you do it with the open E and you finish with the F sharp, you really hear the F sharp and the D, which creates more of a D major tonality, whereas with the one that's written you get more dissonance. Up to you, player's choice. Or I think they actually both sound quite good, so whatever mood you're in. After we've played the triplet, that takes us into measure 1. We have the open G and then the chord on the 2nd beat. To get to that, I'm just going to slide my 2nd finger up from the F sharp. Note that I'm plucking the chord with my thumb, index and middle fingers. And I'm playing it as a broken or rolled chord. Now you could play it with the thumb if you prefer. It's up to you. I just like that effect. And I particularly like how you can give the M finger a little tweak so that you really hear the G, which is the melodic note. Now that stays planted, and I stretch the 4th finger to play the F sharp on the 6th fret of the C string. And there's that nice little campanella across the strings, F sharp, G, A, leading into the D major chord in measure 2. Once again, if you don't like to stretch up with the little finger, we can move the notes. In that case, the F sharp is going to be played here on the 2nd fret of the E string, and then I'd play an open G and an open A. Alright, so it's a little bit easier then. Subtle differences. Now the important thing is that we get a nice full D major chord on the 1st beat of measure 2. Notice that I've just brushed that with the side of my thumb to create a nice warm sounding roll. The next 2 chords, which are also D major, and they're only 3-note chords, I play with a reverse flick of the index finger. So they're quite rhythmical. you get quite a different effect in that bar by first of all rolling the chord nice and mellow, and then the slightly more urgent, anxious sounding flick. Alright, so that's one of the effects I use throughout the piece to try and give this sort of uneasy feeling. Now, moving on to the final notes in measure 2, we've got the G, pulling off to the open string. Alright, so pluck the G, sound the E by pulling off, and now into a nice full C major. Once again, I've rolled it with my fingers, but you could easily play that with the thumb. I'll leave that up to you. Now, I forgot to mention when we were looking at that measure 2 that after doing the reverse flick, I stopped the strings so that it immediately creates this beat of silence. Now you can see in the notation there is actually a crotchet or quarter note rest, and I really intended for those rests to be played in this piece. So we've got the silence, and at the very end of that bar, or measure 3, notice how we've got the fast hammer on. So I play the open C and hammer on quite quickly with the second finger to create the D, and that takes us into the chord in measure 4. And once again you can use that reverse flick. And now we're moving up the fingerboard for this nice little campanella with the A, B and C across the strings. And then the second finger drops on to the D on the 5th fret of the A string. Open chord, don't play that too loudly. And now we need the first finger to hold down the full bar chord. The bar chord is going to stay down from the end of measure 5, so we play the A, and it's still down. Tricky bit there coming up. So that's on beat 3 of measure 6. We've got this pluck, hammer and pull off, all in one fluid movement. So you get that effect. The F sharp, hammering onto the G and then releasing. Okay, I'm going to play from the final beat of measure 4. So you need to have your little campanella ready, and that's coming in right on the 4th beat on the A. So here we go. So I'm just going to pause there so we can talk about the campanella effect in bar 7. Now, if we look at the beginning of that bar, we've just got the G and then the C chord, but then once again, as we did in that first bar, I've got the F sharp on the C string, and this time we're going A, G, F sharp, back to G, and the rhythm is, and I think that's really effective. So once again, that figure at the end of bar 7, we could move the notes so that instead of having the awkward stretch, we have the A open, the G open, the F sharp on the E string, and then back to the open G. So it would sound like, as opposed to, again, it's quite subtle, isn't it? But the important thing is it's leading us into this D major, little D major, bar 8, and then little reverse flick. Once again up for the campanella. Bar A. Pull off. Okay, so there's a lot in that little passage that's very similar to what we've already done, so I wasn't going to go through every single bar. Just note in bar 11 that you've got you start with the G and then it releases. So the technique there, I'll play it without the roll so you can hear it better. So you pluck the G and then you pluck the chord with the G in it and then you pull off, so you get that E sounding, which is really effective, I think. And then back for the campanella. Flick. So we're really heading towards that D major at the beginning of measure 16. That's actually the end of the first part. So the full D major is the important chord with the high D, and then that little kind of shadow coming in. It's like the ghost chord. And if you read my text, you'll understand why I'm calling it the ghost chord. So do try and have a look at that. Let's go from the very last beat of measure 16. And this is the second section. And notice that we start with the same idea as the very beginning, but this time instead of semiquavers, it's quavers. But we've still got the same notes, D, E, F sharp. And then the quaver movement continues, all right, until that bar 19. So let's play through until there, and I'll give you a few pointers as we go along. So ready with 1 and 2 down. Here we go. So pause there. Note in bar 19 we've got this nice C major chord, and actually do an extra pull off on that third beat. So we've got the C major chord, the hammer on to the D, and then it pulls off to the C, and then at the very end, the very last beat, is the fast one, taking us into the D major chord in bar 20. And I just find it easier to drop onto a barre there. All right, so let's go right on bar 19, C major chord. So we've got release the chord, go up for that nice campanella, and then back down to the barre chord on the second, and now stretch up with the pinky finger and hold that for the whole bar before D major. Back up for the campanella, and then second fret, campanella, and then D, full D chords, and then I quite like to do the reverse flick, this time with the thumb. Doesn't matter if you don't hit all the strings. It's really just to give that idea again of the ghost chord and the sudden finality to the song. So it has this kind of unsettled, unbalanced feeling throughout. So to finish up with, what I suggest we do is I stop talking and we put the whole thing together, but just playing it through quite slowly. What I really like about this piece is when you perform it, you can be more flexible with the rhythm, particularly in the first part. So you can pull it back a bit or push it forward a little bit. And I really like those dramatic silences as well. But for the purposes of playing it together now, we'll try and play it quite rhythmically. Here we go. So right from the beginning, 1 and 2 down, and here we go. So So that's my arrangement of She Moves Through the Fair. Feel free to add your own adaptations, move the notes as I was suggesting as we went along, so that you find it easier to play. I don't think there's a right and wrong here, it's just your interpretation and what suits your hand. There's some chords written above, just very basic chords, and you'll notice it's D major and C mostly, I think, throughout. It's in the D Mixolydian mode, is why we've got the C major, because of course in the key of D major we have a C sharp, but you'll notice that all the C's throughout are natural, so it's based on this scale. Quite surprising, isn't it, to have the C as a natural rather than... That's our major, and then the D Mixolydian. And I think that gives us the idea of the sort of strangeness of the song as well. Well, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy playing this piece, and if you have any comments or questions, you can contact me through my website, which is iloveclassicalukulele.com.